Hey guys, welcome back to my podcast, The Journey. And today we are speaking about excellence, endurance, elevation, and expansion. Hey guys, my name is Tindanya Mayaro, and welcome to my podcast, The Journey. So my little definition of that, or my notion or thought train around that, is that to exceed, excel, and elevate, you may first need to engage, endure, and embrace the process with enthusiasm. Success doesn't come without an excitement about what it is that you are doing. Even during the hard times, you'll need to take them on with a resilient and grateful heart. Please note that. And you need to grow to a point of understanding that challenges are not meant to break you, but they're meant to make you stronger. And this is the funny thing that my teachers used to say when it was exam time. They'll be like, yeah, no, these exams are not designed to make you fail. They're designed to make you... I'm like, bruh, what do you mean these exams are designed to make you pass? I'm like, but then with that same statement, that challenges in life are not meant to break you, but they're meant to actually make you stronger. It just depends how you look at it, what perspective you take it from. But with the right mindset, a challenge can actually make you way stronger. Anyway, I'll just run through a few definitions of the four elements that I spoke about, whereby excellence refers to the quality of being outstanding, exceptional, or superior in some aspect. It implies consistently high standards, great skill, or superior performance in a particular field or endeavor, right? Endurance is the ability to persist or withstand hardship, challenges, or difficulties over a long period of time. It involves staying power, resilience, and the capacity to maintain effort and determination in the face of obstacles or adversity. Then the one that I really love, elevation. Elevation can have multiple meanings. In a literal sense, okay, obviously it refers to the act of raising or lifting something, right, to higher position. But in a figurative sense, elevation can refer to the state of being uplifted, elevated, or inspired, mentally, emotionally, or spiritually, right? Expansion refers to the process of becoming larger, broader, or more extensive. It can involve growth, development, or any increase in size or scope or influence. In various contexts, expansion can denote the act of spreading out, extending, or diversifying. So with those four elements, I'm going to start speaking about the Treble Clef Story. I may not go into like full detail because there's a lot of elements, but I'm going to just try and touch on the part of the story that involved excellence, endurance, elevation, and expansion, right? So for those who know, obviously I'm from Zim, and I left home when I was 18, right? I was 18 when I left home. And from there I went to, I think I've spoken about this before, I went to Botswana for a year, then to Namibia, then to States, then to Joburg, then to Cape Town, back to Joburg. That's the timeline. Okay, so before I left for Namibia, I used to go to a certain church, and I think that was my first experience of actually teaching someone, right? And at that point in time, we'd teach people just so that they could then get into the worship team, expand the team, location, etc., etc. So that was my first experience of actually teaching someone how to play piano at the time. I wasn't teaching guitar. In fact, I was playing guitar, but I wasn't teaching it. So anyway, I started teaching for free there, and it was beautiful. And I think from that point in time, that's where I got to develop the consistency part, because eager students will always be there. It's now up to the teacher to make sure that they are available. And for me, that was the beginning of endurance, because you get days where you don't want to go and give the class. You may be going through stuff or whatever, but then because of your commitment to it, you have to, you know. So that basically starts teaching you endurance. You don't want to go and disappoint people. You don't want to go and create like a bad reputation that, okay, he teaches but he's never there, you know, type of situation. So for me, although those are the wrong motives, it kind of still contributed to my endurance training, you know. Anyway, so from there I went to Botswana. I didn't teach as much in Bots. My friend Wayne did. But yeah, there were one or two people that would teach at the church there as well. And then from there, I went to Namibia, Windhoek, and that's where it all began. Because I don't even remember how that student came to me. I think the mom was referred to me by someone, and I started teaching a kid for free. Again, I don't know, it was just a passion thing. Like if someone wanted to learn an instrument, I was there to say, okay, come, let me teach you how to play, you know. And I taught this kid for a few months, and he started playing, right? And the mom was so excited about it. And this one day I get to the house. I was giving private lessons, so I'd go to the houses and stuff. I went to a house and I taught, obviously did my lesson. And the mom then gave me an envelope with money. So for me at that point, I was like, no, I'm doing this for the love of it. It's okay, it's chilled, it's fine. And she was like, no, you need to be paid for this talent that you have. And for me, that was the beginning of my journey, my Treble Clef story. So anyway, relating to that is the aspect of excellence. Excellence is something that you can't cheat, you know. Excellence is something that you can't lie about. Excellence is something that you can't manufacture. People see results. People are not blind. People are not dumb. And people gauge your ability to deliver from what you do. And if you do it with a spirit of excellence and with a mindset of excellence, there's always going to be a reward for that. And for me, that was my reward, because this kid was actually playing and I was doing this with all my heart. So yeah, that was my first student. Got paid by that. And for me, that's the beginning of Treble Clef. I went home, thought about it, I was like, okay, if one person can give me this amount of money, imagine 10 people doing the same thing. Yeah, now it started kicking in. And I did my first logo. Initially, it was Bass Clef School of Music or something like that. And then it was, I've forgotten, there were like 4 different names that I came up with, until Treble Clef then hit me. And I won't even lie, I only liked Treble Clef because it rolled off my tongue nicely. I just loved the sound of it. And that's how Treble Clef began. Anyway, did a logo for it. And then I started teaching at university, like university students, because we'd play at different gigs and concerts, and people would see us playing and be like, dude, can you teach me how to do this? And I'm like, okay, cool. And I started charging for that. So those were my first few days of now monetization, as they call it these days. But yeah, so from that point, I started teaching. I think the reputation started getting out there to say there's a guy called Ty who teaches piano, you know. And I started teaching in NAM. I taught at a few schools. And I remember that's where I landed my first big paycheck. There was one school that I was teaching at, and these guys had offered me 20K per month to actually teach. Like, it was crazy. I'd never held that kind of money monthly, and I was a 20-something-year-old teen or young adult at that time. So it was amazing. 20K a month. 20K a month. Student. Anyway, so it was beautiful. So I kept with that school for a while, for a few months, and then things happened where we eventually lost that contract. Yeah, and I was then teaching at another daycare, which was really good. I had quite a number of students there, but I only stopped teaching there, I think, when I left Namibia. So for me, NAM or Namibia was my was my training ground for what it is that I believe God had set up for me, right? And losing that contract, getting into another school, trying to keep that flow of income coming in is what taught me endurance. Just like how it started in Zim, I'd reached a certain level of self-independence, and I didn't want to lose that. So I did what I had to do to just keep that money rolling in, to keep teaching, right? So for me, my endurance training continued from Zim to Bots to NAM, right? And it was beautiful because I kept the excellence standard up. And just as a side note, God sees that kind of stuff, right? He sees your persistence, he sees your consistency, he sees your heart behind stuff, and that's where elevation begins to come through. So anyway, from there, I pushed through to, where did I go? I went to the States, and yeah, after a huge major heartbreak, whole new story. Oh, this one I don't even know if I'm going to talk about it, but I will someday. Um, anyway, I went to the States because of what the training ground had given me. The thing that got me out of that heartbreak was getting back into teaching. So I got up one day, walked around in the neighborhood where I was staying, and I found daycares. And, I started like selling myself, my services. This is what I do, etc, etc. And I got a few daycares that I was working with, and they were so excited. I remember this one school that I went to. When I spoke with the principal, she started crying, and she's like, "I've been praying for something like this to come to the school," and she was showing me. She had goosebumps, and stuff like that. It was amazing. I remember that lady. That's one lady I won't forget, because I felt like when I left the States, I broke her heart, and it was crazy. It was crazy. But for me, sorry, I'm gonna be skipping in and out, but it's relevant. There's a friend of mine, Carl, I spoke about him before, and he said to me, he was like, "Dude, just from hearing this part of your story and stuff, you can tell that this is something that God has designed you for. This is," what did he call it? There's a term that he used that was amazing. I'll try and remember it during this podcast. But it showed that when God gives you something and you are a good steward of it, wherever you are in the world, that thing doesn't come out of you, and people recognize that. And if you just carry on with those same standards of excellence, endurance, and just being favor and grace also follow you, and that contributes to elevation. So I'll also talk about excellence back in Namibia, when the academy had started. Thanks, Pastor Mike and Lady T. They offered me a venue where I could teach music, and that was like I don't want to say the beginning, but it was just like, let me say, the beginning of a new standard or new level of Treble Clef. Because from there, that's where I moved from 5 clients to 100 clients. I think over 100 clients, 130 if I'm sure. There's a news article about it, in like 3 months, and word of mouth was going around. There is Treble Clef Music Academy, and Ty's teaching, and Ty's like ABCD, and people would flock, within that same period of time. The National Broadcasting Corporation of Namibia, which is a TV channel, the national TV channel, they also approached me with a proposal to do a music teaching show, and we actually did 2 seasons of that in NAM. So when you've got the right mindset, right heart, when you've got an excellent standard of delivery, and you've endured whatever hardships have tried to like kick you down, elevation just follows. Elevation is just the next step, and it comes at points where you're just doing you. But because you're doing you with a positive mindset and with the right mindset and the right intentions, elevation literally just sweeps you off your feet. I would never have thought I would have a program on TV. I never would have thought I'll be in news articles. I never would have thought that I would have jumped from 5 to 130 within 3 months. But that was just the beginning because God had so much more. Um, yeah, it was amazing. So anyway, back from the States, I that was my experience. It was good. Had a few schools lined up, but I came back to Joburg, and then I went to Cape Town Line Dock. That's where I started with this one school, Spark Line Dock. And for 2 years, I worked there teaching music, and it was amazing. We had a great band. I had a great relationship with the teachers, with the school, with the students, with parents. It was just an amazing family at the end of the day. At that place, I think for those 2 years, it was just a molding of solidifying my reputation, solidifying who I was by developing relationships with the people that were there. Remember what I spoke about where elevation can come through favor and grace, and that comes from people seeing the kind of heart that you have, intention that you have, etc. And I think for me, that was the beginning of God saying, okay, you enjoyed in Zim, you enjoyed in Bots, you enjoyed in Nam and in the States. This is where it begins. And to cut the long story short, I remember there's a point in time where I felt like God was saying, it's time for you to get into the other Spark schools, which are back in Joburg. Remember, there's one school in Cape Town. Anyway, so I started writing this whole proposal, etc. For some months I had it, but I just didn't know the time to start, or the time to actually pursue wanting to get into the other Spark schools, and there's a scripture that speaks about everything happens at a certain point in time. Like, timing is important, right? Anyway, got to a point, I remember towards the end of the year, when I spoke about like in the last podcast, where her and Portia and other people would come and say, dude, why don't you get into other Spark schools? I'll be like, huh? So here I am writing proposals, trying to think, how am I going to get this angle? And people from Spark start saying, dude, why don't you get into the next Spark school? Why don't you get into the next Spark school? So for me, I took that as a sign of, this is the time to do this. And then another Spark operations manager, Portia, she came to Cape Town. She was friends with at the time, and I got introduced to her. Amazing person. We've become pretty close outside of the school grounds. But Portia then also said the same thing, and she's like, dude, why don't you bring this program to Joburg? We need it at our campus. And I was like, okay, I hear you. It is the time. And for sure, I sent in the proposal to say I would like to get into the next Spark schools. And boom, it didn't take long. It did not take long. That expansion was almost instant because I'd proved myself. Excellence, endurance, the elevation of being in that family setup with the other Spark teachers, kids, parents. The expansion literally just took off like that. And for me, that really just, it blew my mind, because I then relocated from Cape Town, found a teacher, left them teaching there at Spark in Cape Town. Then I relocated to Joburg. And I remember I had initially started with 10 schools, and crazy part, life just has this way of coming to just derail you. I remember when I left Cape Town, I gave away stuff. I only came to Joburg with my TV and my fridge and my bed and my piano. Wasn't going to leave my piano. The rest of the stuff, I had a fully furnished house. I gave things away. I remember even the day that the movers came to take my TV and whatever, I had bags of clothes, and I'm like, guys, take these clothes because I'm going to Joburg and things are going to be amazing. Whoo-wee. Didn't COVID say hello? Whoa. So, and I got here we're doing registrations, and we'd pushed, so many people had signed up to the program. And then COVID just came and knocked on everybody's window. And you know how things were hectic back then. So, yeah, endurance had to kick in again. And sometimes the endurance, it brings in creativity, right? So I remember we're not doing any online lessons at that time or whatever. But as soon as we could tell the schools are going to start getting shut, I just immediately switched to online lessons, something I'd never done before, and within a week, I had an online program ready. I was like, and that's when, I believe that the Holy Spirit teaches you certain things and tells you certain things and guides you in certain things. And for me, that was the guide. I'd never done online before. I had never jumped on Zoom before, etc. But I managed to get parents to buy instruments and get a few people to jump online. And for an entire year, that's what sustained me. An entire year. Could pay my rent. I even moved out because when I got here, I stayed with my brother. I moved out from my brother's place and I found my own spot, and I could pay my rent, pay my bills with these online lessons. That's endurance. And for sure, when the schools reopened again, man, it's crazy. From the 10 that were there, we moved into about 18 Spark schools and 3 other independent schools, 21 schools. It was crazy. It was crazy. But for me, that's just the result of being someone who, pushed in their endurance, still kept their standards of excellence high, and because of that gained grace and favor, which was my elevation. And from that, it poured into my expansion. So that's my encouragement for you today, that life is a journey. It's a beautiful adventure. In whatever you're doing, you need to do it with excellence. That's the only way you will attract favor, which will grant you passageway to a place of elevation. And life will forever test you, COVID. And without that endurance to face the hard times head on and keep your excellent standards high, you will never reach a stage where you're able to expand. You can never expand a failed or stagnant concept. You can only expand that which has been tried, tested, and seen growth. And the test of time is always key to confirm whether a concept is ready to multiply or not. Ladies and gentlemen, work at producing products and services at a level of excellence. When the hard times come, don't give up. Beef up that endurance, and from it you will reap elevation with that and that expansion will surely come. This is not just a formula, it's a way of life that we can apply daily to multiple situations and areas of your life, of your existence, of your being. Yeah, just think about it. Where can you apply excellence, endurance, and where has the elevation then come from? And how do you want to expand yourself? How do you want to gain more territory? What do you need to do? Think about it. And for me, from me, and my own, and Nartis, I think we are done for today. Keep running your race and keep building that excellence. Don't give up. Don't lose hope. And Joe. My name is Tendai. And I'm out.